everyone, and welcome to our next episode of You've Changed. This one is called Becoming Untrapped, following on from our last one, which we called Trapped. So the things we chatted to you last time were about sort of acknowledging and accepting in the very first place that you're just not happy and that something needs to change. And we chatted about how difficult that is to admit to yourself, but that once you do, it's quite liberating to know that actually you've made that really tough first step that says, okay, I'm not happy, what the hell am I going to do about it? So this one is where we're sort of going to move on to changing that, to becoming untrapped. So one of the things that we have sort of realised over the last, year perhaps, is the amount of time that we were spending in a fight or flight response. So as a direct result of the stress of one stressor after another, we were living in a sustained fight or flight response, and it is so detrimental to your physical, emotional, mental well-being.
No matter how much we try to escape it, I remember going on honeymoon and within a day getting a phone call saying I'm not going into work tomorrow, and literally that one person ruined our vibe for a day or two because I had to sort those issues out. And I'm like, so fight or flight is a very intelligent response, and it's very useful, very necessary, and it's very useful, and it was a lot more, well, it's still very useful now, but it was a lot more useful 500 to 1,000 years ago when your fight or flight response would kick in when you've got to run away from a lion that's chasing you, and it's giving you that big adrenaline release, and that you run into the cave into safety, and all of a sudden that lion goes away and your fight or flight response calms down. But unfortunately now, with the modern days that we live in, one of the primary reasons why stress levels going up and it's killing so many people is because so many people live in this fight or flight response and they just don't know. And I didn't know. We were in it for years and years and years. We didn't know until we came out of it. And we knew something wasn't right, but I didn't know what it was. And the problem with the modern day is that we are constantly in fight or flight because of devices, technology, things that are meant to save us or help us, are actually destroying our lives. Yeah. For instance, we would go back to our safe place at home and an email would land and you check the email and all of a sudden
you've got 4 hours of dealing with it.
Yeah, you go to sleep on it, sleep tonight, and you wake up on it and think, well, I've got to sort this out now. And depending on what it is, that might last hours, might last days, might last weeks, might last months or even years, and it could actually be something that's with you for the rest of your life because of it's creating a trauma response when something else happens. Like for instance, if you see a person's name that sent that email and it's having that traumatic response in your brain, and you might think, oh, that's not me, that doesn't happen, and actually you suppressed it at the time, but actually all these emotions that you suppress, sometimes it's going to overload, and that's what is stress, and that's what depression is. So you keep these emotions tucked away, especially within the male community as well. We don't need to get told as a child not to cry, not to get upset, don't get angry. But actually they're normal responses that we need to let out sometimes, and if we let them out, it doesn't overload.
Yeah. The issue is with this sort of fight or flight response, like Dan said, it's really important. It's a vital, natural response that's there to protect us and keep us safe. But the issue is that our brains can't tell the difference between real danger and perceived danger. So you can have this fight or flight response to something as simple as an email, and that would be the same as you getting chased by a lion. And our brains just can't differentiate between that. So a lot of this issue is that you get put into that fight or flight, and before you've even come out of that one, something else has happened to put you straight back into it. And we've got to work out how we don't live in that space, because too many of us do. And it becomes your normal, and it's not normal, and it's not okay, and it does affect us long term, doesn't it?
So some of these episodes of being untrapped that we're going to be talking about over the coming weeks are the categories of what makes us feel trapped and what makes us stress. And one big one for us is or has been, is other people. One thing that obviously while we've been doing this kind of awakening is that we are very selective at who we spend time with, and ensure that these people that we spend time with are happy, positive, high vibing people. And I kind of look at like an analogy of pretending you're looking over two people having a conversation. And there's this person that is complaining about others, judgmental about others, stressed, upset, angry, all these low vibing emotions, and this other person is quite a high, happy person. And when you're looking over this conversation and having it, the high vibing person is just being receptive, and it's getting this barrage of stress being thrown at them and complaining. And when this low vibe person walks away, that high vibe person is no longer high vibe, they're low vibe, they're on the floor. And it takes hours and hours to get over that. It might even take weeks or days or months, depending on what that situation was. So if you were a higher power and you were making the decision for that high vibe person, you tell that high vibe person to stay the hell away from that other person. So why can't we do that in our own lives? And sometimes, yeah, it is difficult, especially if you're in a relationship with your husband or your wife, and that person's dragging you down, doesn't make you feel very good. It's going to be a very difficult decision to walk away from that person, be it from the kids' perspective, the mortgage and stuff like that. But is it worth spending another day, month, year in that place that you're currently in? And sometimes you have to make a really tough decision, but actually life will improve somewhat. So
I think sometimes we almost don't respect ourselves enough, do we?
No.
Like Dan said, if you were looking over a situation and you were giving somebody advice, a good friend for example, you would say, don't be around that person. They're dragging you down, they're negative, they're sapping that energy out of you. But actually for yourself, we sometimes just don't respect ourselves enough, do we? And
No.
you know, we've talked a lot about, I used to complain about this. I used to say, Dan, why am I so affected by other people? Like, I can be really fine. And then somebody changes me. And why is that? And actually now I think I realise that that's because I'm taking their issues on. I'm taking their energy on, if you like. So we all know that some people light up a room when they walk into it. Some people do the very opposite. And when they walk in a room, it goes boom. And those people have not said anything yet. It could be a facial expression, but generally it's just that energy, isn't it? And you know, just like when you've had an argument with your partner, you could cut the air, couldn't you? There's an atmosphere and it's tense and it's unpleasant and your body feels it. And I think we've realised a lot, haven't we, that other people can really impact you and how you feel. And it can be quite difficult to just acknowledge that in the first place. But I think once you acknowledge that, you can then put steps in place, can't you, to protect yourself, to put some boundaries there, just so that you're not feeling that, you know, sort of dragged down. And we're not in any way saying, you know, people do offload on you, and we all need that. We all need to be able to just, you know, offload on a loved one or a friend and have that space to do that. But it shouldn't be in a place of judgment and criticism and talking about other people behind their back, because that is really negative, isn't it? And does affect you deeply.
Yeah, what we've kind of noticed is a person's behaviour is a direct reflection on themselves. So say that person's being judgmental of others or being judgmental of you, or saying you're a certain way, you're this, you're that, and you're just like, what the hell? And if you sometimes take that on board, and we've been guilty in the past of taking that on board, and one of the rules that we're sticking by now is not to take that on board and actually see it for what it is, and that is a direct reflection on themselves and their problem as such. So that's one rule we're sticking by.
Yes, not taking things personally.
Yeah. The second rule is not gossip about others, and I don't think we've ever really gossiped about others anyway, but that is number one rule as well, because if you know somebody that gossips about others, I can guarantee they gossip about you as well. You'll find that out. And then another rule is be very selective who you spend time with, and make your circle smaller, and only let in those people that uplift you and build you up. And there's something called the law of attraction, where you're receptive of what the universe will give you in the energy that you're putting out there. So for instance, you're vibing high, you're more receptive to good people coming into your life, you're more receptive to abundance and happiness and so on. So if you have your little circle and then somebody comes into that circle and drags that down, then you're going to be more receptive to negative things and unhappiness and stress, and it's all in balance.
Yeah, it's just, and I think one of the real take homes here is that it's okay to respect yourself. It's okay to say, I don't tolerate that. That's harming me, and I'm not engaging in it, and that's okay.
So this was about people. Next week's episode is going to be about circumstance. Circumstances you might be in.
Let's do circumstances.
That's a good episode choice.
Yeah.
Okay, so tune in next week. Thank you all for listening, guys. We'll speak to you all soon.